Welcome! If you've ever wondered how your favorite app can find exactly what you're looking for, or how a company sifts through millions of records to make a decision, then you're in the right place. Today, we're going to learn how to talk to data using its native language, SQL. Let's demystify how we can turn all that raw information into real, solid answers.
And honestly, this is the single most important idea to get in your head. Let's just forget about code and syntax for a second. Talking to a database isn't about being some kind of tech wizard. It's really just about being a clear communicator. It's a conversation. All you need to learn is how to ask for things in a way that our super organized, slightly robotic librarian can understand.
All right, so our first mission is to learn the basic vocabulary for that conversation. This is all about the art of asking for exactly what you need, no more and no less.
Okay, let's break it down. Every basic question you're going to ask really just has three parts. First, you've got select. That's you telling the librarian exactly which pieces of information you want to see, like, just show me the street name and the price, thanks. Then you have from. This is you pointing to the right bookshelf, or in our world, the right table of data. And finally, you've got where. These are your non-negotiable rules, your filter, like saying, but only if the town is Pungal. See? Select what you want from where it is, where the conditions are met.
Now, a quick pro tip I want to share with you. You'll see these keywords, select, from, where, written in all caps almost everywhere. Does it have to be that way? Well, technically no. The computer doesn't care. But here's the thing. Every professional does it. It's a standard that just makes your code way, way easier for a human to read. It's a small habit, trust me, but it makes a huge difference.
So, you might be thinking, why bother being so specific? Why not just ask for everything using that little star symbol, select star? Well, imagine walking up to that librarian and saying, give me every single piece of information about every book on that shelf. It would take forever, right? It would be a total data dump. By selecting only the columns you actually need, your request is faster, more efficient, and you don't drown in information you weren't even looking for.
And that where clause we talked about, this is where the real power kicks in. You can filter by text to find an exact match, like a town name. Or you can filter by numbers, using operators like greater than or less than. You've actually done this 1,000 times. You know when you're on a property website and you use the filters to set a price range or pick a location? Yep, behind the scenes, you are literally building a where clause. Okay, so we've totally nailed how to pull out specific individual records. But what if we want to zoom out and understand the data as a whole? It's time to stop looking at individual trees and start seeing the entire forest. This right here, this is my absolute favorite way to think about one of SQL's most powerful commands, group by. Imagine you have a giant, messy pile of receipts. If you wanted to find the average you spent at each store, what's the very first thing you'd do? You'd sort them into little piles, right? A pile for Target, a pile for Starbucks. That's it. That is exactly what group by does. It sorts all your data into neat little buckets before you do any math.
So you've got your bucket sorted. Now what? Well, now you use these tools called aggregate functions. Instead of giving you a long list of every single price, they do a calculation on each bucket and give you back just one summary number. Count tells you how many items are in the bucket. Average gives you the average. Max finds the biggest one. It's all about condensing thousands of rows into one useful insight per group.
And check this out. When you put those two things together, grouping into buckets with group by and then doing the math with a function like AVG, bam, you get something like this, which is one query. We've taken thousands of sales, grouped them all by town, calculated the average price for each town, and now we can see, instantly, that Bishan is pricier on average. This is how raw data becomes actual business intelligence.
All right, get ready. We're about to tackle the single biggest trap that almost every beginner falls into. It feels so natural, right? You've calculated the average price, and now you just want to see the really expensive towns. So you try to write where average price greater than $600,000 and error. It doesn't work. So why not? What's going on here?
And here is the secret. It is all about timing. Think of your query like an assembly line. Where is the inspector at the very beginning of the line? It filters out individual rows before any of the grouping or the math happens. At that point, the database has no idea what average price even is. But having is the inspector at the very end of the line. It waits until after all the grouping and calculations are done, and then it filters those final results. So the rule is simple. Where filters rows. Having filters groups. Got it?
Okay, we've covered selecting, filtering, and summarizing. But let's be honest, real-world data is, well, it's messy.
For this last part, let's look at a couple of amazing tools that help you clean up, categorize, and basically translate your data while you're querying.
And these are our two new best friends. Just think of Cast as your universal translator. It can turn data from one type into another. And Case is your logic builder. It's like adding a little if-then brain right inside your query to create brand new labels for your data.
A case statement is so cool. It basically goes through each row one by one and follows your rules. First it asks, is the price over $1 million? If yes, it slaps on the label $1 Million Club. If no, it moves to the next rule. Okay, is it over 500,000? If yes, it gets the mid-range label. And if a row doesn't match any of your rules, it falls into the final else bucket. Just like that, you've created a brand new, meaningful category that didn't exist before.
Now, what about our translator, Cast? Okay, imagine you have a column of dates, but the database is dumb and thinks they're just plain text. You can't do date math on text, right? You can't ask, what's 30 days from now? Cast is the function that lets you tell the database, hey, treat this text string as an actual date, which unlocks a whole world of new calculations you can perform.
And hey, here's another one of those insider tips. In a lot of modern databases, you don't even have to type out the whole cast function. You can just use a // as a super fast shortcut. It's clean, it's quick, and it'll make you look like you really know what you're doing.
So let's put it all together. How do we use these tools to solve a real problem? Well, imagine you're a property analyst. Your goal is to find undervalued towns. So what do? First, you find the average price per town. That's a group by and an average. Then you filter for only the towns where that average price is below a certain threshold. That's a job for having. And finally, in those cheap towns, you select the top 5 largest flats. See, each concept we learned is a building block that helps you answer a really complex question. So, at the end of the day, SQL isn't just a bunch of commands. It's a way of thinking. It's a language for asking better questions. The data's always there, filled with insights, just waiting. The real skill, the one you're building right now, is learning how to have that conversation. And now, you've got the tools to start asking some really interesting questions.